Hello YouTube, Dave here again, back with another WWE Replica belt related video. And today we're going to be taking a look at one of my all-time favorite designs for a championship belt, but one that was really only around for a handful of months. But those months were super memorable, and it started in my favorite era, my favorite year in professional wrestling, which was 1998. In my last video, I mentioned that the scratch logo WWE Championship belt was only used for a year and a half. Well, this one was technically only in existence for 13 months, but it only appeared on 6 shows, 6 major pay-per-views during that 13-month period, and the rest of the time it was just nowhere to be seen. But this belt was held by only 3 people. Those 3 people were Mankind, The Undertaker, and the person that the belt was made for, Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I don't think I need to explain any further. You probably all know, and it's obviously in the video title, so I don't know why I'm trying to build suspense. But today we're taking a look at the Smoking Skull WWE Championship. So again, this is one of my all-time favorite designs. I'm not going to go into the creation or the history of it in this video because I actually do want to do a video where I use like the replica belts that I have in my collection to sort of go over the history of the WWE WWF Championship, at least the history of the belt during the time period in which I started watching wrestling up until modern day. So I'm going to hold off on the details, but like I said, this was only actually used for a handful of pay-per-views. This belt debuted the night after Fully Loaded in 1998, which was the July pay-per-view for 1998, and the last time it was ever used was at SummerSlam in 1999 when Mankind won it in a triple threat match involving Mankind, Triple H, and of course Stone Cold Steve Austin. And it appeared in like 5 pay-per-views. Austin only carried this belt into 5 different pay-per-views as champion, and there was the Backlash 1999 where he was champion, but he didn't have this belt. The storyline was him trying to get this belt back. So he walked out of the pay-per-view with the Smoking Skull belt, but he didn't actually walk into the pay-per-view with it. So he defended this version of the title 5 times. And 4 of those 5 times was against The Undertaker. So it's just kind of an interesting little side note. But we're not, like I said, we're not going to get too much into the history of it here, especially since I forget a couple of the pay-per-view names. But what we're going to do is we're just going to take a look at the belt as a whole. And this is the current version of the replica that you can buy off of WWE Shop. I, do not really condone, I shouldn't say condone, because that sounds a little judgmental. But I am not interested in bootlegs at this point in time. I've seen some really nice ones. I've seen some really questionable ones, but it's just not something that I'm currently, that I have an interest in adding to my collection. Everything that I get, I like it to be like official. I like it to be, from the company that actually, owns the copyrights to it, and I just don't want to get involved in bootlegs, stuff like that. But, if that's what you're into, that's totally fine. I'm not here to shame anybody. It's just my own personal preference that I will stick to official replicas, at least for now. Who knows? It might be fun to buy a bootleg or 2 at some point in the future and see, how good or bad they are. But that's a whole other matter for a different time. So taking a look at the belt here, the first thing, the strap itself. This is the stock strap that comes with the from WWE Shop. This is a very, very, very plain strap. There's no artificial or there's no like tooling, artificial tooling or simulated tooling on the belts. Like some of them, you'll have like the clamshell camouflage pattern going around the outside, or you'll have like the WWE Champion banner or tooling going around it, or you'll see stuff like in the snap boxes will be textured. Like this strap has nothing on it. I want to say that there was a version of this belt that basically was pretty plain as well. Like the strap was pretty basic. I could be wrong, but it's fine. It doesn't bother me. But yeah, so here we got the snap boxes. Again, they're just sort of the sewn-on ones, which it is what it is. Again, I'm not going to complain. It doesn't bother me any. I'm not that much of a purist. But you got the snap box there, and then we've got our first outer side plate. So here we got the side plates that has like the broken glass kind of background there. It's got the WWE logo and the word Attitude. And yes, it is the WWE logo. And yes, I know the original belt only ever had the WWF logo, but the WWE does not have the rights to use the WWF logo for merchandise or for, things that they're profiting off of. Because they lost a lawsuit to the World Wildlife Fund. It's a matter of like a legal proceeding and court ruling that, you can't have the WWF logo on these belts. If that bugs people, it is what it is, but it's not a conscious thing that WWE is doing. Like they're not, using their current logo or company name to upset people. They're doing it because it's either that or no replica at all. So, given the options, I would rather have, the WWE logo than not be able to have anything. So anyway, it is what it is. I wish people would stop bringing that up like it's a conscious decision. It's a matter of legal proceedings and rulings and court decisions and stuff, and I'm just not going to get into that. But yeah, we got the WWE Attitude, and then here we've got the inner side plates, and they're mirrored on the other side, so I'm not going to show the other side just because it's the exact same thing. But we've got the WWE logo, and we've got the smoking skull on the at the bottom of the plate here, and you've actually got a rattlesnake wrapping around the smoking skull, and you can see the snake's head on this side, so that's like the snake's there's like the snake's eye there. That's part of like the black scaling. But you got like the little dot for the eye. Its mouth is just a little teeny tiny bit open there. And then the other side, you've actually got the rattlesnake's tail. Now what's interesting is that a lot of the bootlegs that I've seen, this side, instead of being the tail, is almost always like a second snake head. And I don't know how they think that works, but there you go. But yeah, the actual belt is supposed to have the snake's tail and the snake's head, not two snake heads. But again, you got like the cool smoking skull logo there with the WWE logo. The WWE logo is also here as well. And then we're going to come to the center plate, the main attraction. I just love this belt. Like I said, it's one of my all-time favorites. So what we have is we've got the smoking skull, of course, in the center. And it's got the WWE logo on there, the smoke coming out of the eyes. You have the barbed wire border going all around the plate. And I want to say that the 1998, like late 98 version of the WWE Women's Championship or WWF Women's Championship, I'm just going to call it WWE because that's what the company's called now. Just deal with it. But like the 98 version of the WWE Women's Championship, the one that was retired after the Divas belt came out, it was actually designed off of this belt. It had so the center plate had the same shape. I want to say it even had the barbed wire border going around it. The side plates were different, but like the main plate of the Women's Championship belt was actually the same sort of like general shape as this one, just with a different design on it. But yeah, so there you go. I guess a little trivia. But then we got the word world in sort of like a scratchy font that's kind of reminiscent of the WWE logo. And then down here, we've got heavyweight champion and kind of this like, very like 90s, very like, hardcore. Like I believe this is the exact same kind of font that was used on the ECW championships. And it makes sense. You got the barbed wire, you've got like the scratchy, almost razor wire kind of look to some of that maybe. But then you've got like the heavyweight champion, kind of this again, sort of like the scratchier, wavy kind of lettering, similar to like the ECW stuff. We were definitely into the Attitude Era at this point. So again, just a very, very cool design. It's on this black ribbon, and the back, or the part where the ribbon kind of goes into the background and then comes back into the foreground, has this grid pattern on it. I don't quite know what the point of the grid pattern is, except maybe just to distinguish it, but the original belt had the same design, so there you go. And then on either side of the smoking skull is a coiled rattlesnake. So it's got its mouth open, so you can see like its fangs here. See if I can get it a little closer to the camera. The details on the snake are kind of hard to see with the camera. We got like the fang there, we got the fang there. You sort of have like the snake's mouth open, and then we've got like the tail, and it's just sort of coiled around. Again, a very, very cool design. I just absolutely love it. And then on the back of the belt, I'm just going to do it this way because it's easiest. The original belt had a snakeskin backing on it, so even though this is all simulated, they actually did a simulated snakeskin backing on the back of this belt, which is really cool because, you know, it's a detail that they didn't have to do. They could have just had it be a black background and or backing, and I don't think people would have been too upset. But the fact that they actually, you know, did like the artificial or simulated snakeskin, I think is a really cool detail as well. So there you go. That is the Smoking Skull Championship. And yeah, oh, by the way, also it's on 5mm plates, and it has not a huge curve to it, but it does have a slight curve to it. I can, you know, get my fingers underneath there. So it's very faint. It's not as curved as the real belt was, but I don't mind that, honestly. I kind of like the fact that it's a flatter belt. It's not a massive plate. It's not like the size of, say, like the Undisputed Championship. So the fact that it's like when it's curved, especially since I want to say the original belt had a pretty deep curve on it, it just makes the center plate look small. But here, like, it looks like a nice, decent sized plate with just, you know, a slight enough curve that there's something there. Without it being sort of like bowed. I've seen some like bootleg belts where the curve is basically like this huge, massive, ridiculous thing where the center plate basically looks like it's like that because it's just curved so much. But yeah, no, I think it's a great belt. You know, I never buy them full price, so I can never recommend paying full price for the replica belts, but they do go on sale quite often. I think this one was around 300, maybe 350 Canadian. And then there was like tax and shipping and all that stuff on top of it. But I waited until it was on like a 30% off sale before I pulled the trigger on it. But I'm glad I did because, like I said, it's one of my favorite championship designs of all time. You know, this was the belt that you know, for me, even though it wasn't used a whole lot in 1998, 98 is my favorite year in pro wrestling, period, especially as a WWF fan at the time. And this belt just always takes me back to like that time. Like, you know, when I look at this belt, I almost always want to just throw on like SummerSlam 98 or, you know, go through like my Stone Cold Steve Austin DVDs to find ones that have matches where he was using this belt on it. But again, I think it's a great design. You know, it was a custom design, right? It was only really meant to be used by one person. And I think it captures, you know, the spirit of that individual really well. It's a great design, and yeah, I absolutely love it. In fact, even though again it was only around for, you know, for a year, and during that year it was only really around for like 5 months. This belt was still so iconic that when 2K16 came out, the video game. The big thing about that was that it had the story mode involving Stone Cold's career. The actual like video marketing or advertising, like the teaser for this game, the video involved Stone Cold going out into the desert and digging up the Smoking Skull belt. And I remember when they showed it on, I think I watched it on YouTube, but when they had the video of it from Monday Night Raw, where they sort of, you know, debuted, or when they first showed the video and they showed Austin, you know, pulling, you know, the Smoking Skull belt out, dusting it off and throwing it over his shoulder, the crowd popped huge. So it's just a, you know, very, you know, it's just a very iconic design. Even though it wasn't around for very long, it's still one of my favorites, and I love this belt dearly. And yeah, it was one of the ones that was on my list of must-haves when I finally decided that I was going to get into replica belt collecting. So there you go. Let me know in the comments below. What are your favorite memories involving the Smoking Skull belt? Were you actually kind of surprised to look back and realize that this belt really didn't get a lot of time on TV? You know, or, you know, like, do you remember the Monday Night Raw where, you know, The Rock, you know, had the funeral for Stone Cold and, you know, had this belt around his waist? Like, just, I don't know, let me know what your favorite moments are involving the Smoking Skull belt. Again, I wanted to get a little bit more into the history of the belt, but I'm going to save that for a video where I just go over the history of WWE Championship designs in general, which will be coming out. I'm going to start working on that actually pretty soon, so I just got to research a few like pay-per-view names and stuff like that, and I should be good to go. Anyway, thank you guys again very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Take care.